Hi, everybody. Welcome. I want to affirm you for coming in out of that gorgeous day to hear this topic, forgiveness, because forgiveness is a really big deal. So you made a good decision. But before I start, is this a person for us? Hi, are you here for forgiveness talk?
Well, it said I was invited, so I was.
Oh, well, we hope you'll be tempted to linger longer. What's your first name? Hi, I'm Eileen. Eileen? Well, I want to begin by thanking Mark Hudson here. He's a real professional, and he is a wonderful person to interact with when I'm doing a talk. And especially now he has to handle Zoom as well. So thank you, Mark. I can't see you, but thank you. My second thank you was to Patty, who is always on Zoom, because she suggested part 2.
Yes.
We were winding down part 1, and Patty said, this, I forget her words, Eileen, this is such an important topic. Can we do part 2? And then she even said, and could we start at 2 o'clock? So she's full of good ideas, but she's missing today. But that happens. Yeah, it happens, right, Deb? Yes. So I wanted to, we have an hour and a half today. We usually only have an hour. So my thought is, yeah. Oh, here's what we're going to do with our 3 half hours. The first half hour will be a review of part 1 for those of you who were not here. The second half hour will be new material. Part 2 requires newness, so we'll have that. And then the last half hour will be for you. I mean, I want you to interact throughout, but that extra half hour, I want you to be thinking about if you have a deep issue that you'd like to share with us. That is the time to get input from each other. So I was getting a kick out of the fact that we're going to do review, the new, and you. Isn't that cute? Yeah. Okay, so I always have 2 requests of my listeners. Hello. The first is that you interact throughout, that you talk if you have a question, if you need clarification, if you have a comment, please interact throughout. I'd like that we all have wisdom. We all have wisdom inside of us. It comes with life experience. So share it. Every question is intelligent in my book. And the second is not a request, it's a requirement. And that is that you agree to confidentiality, that whatever is said in this room, right, stays here, because I want you to feel safe. Because especially with a small group like this is an opportunity. If you have a nagging issue around forgiveness, this is a place to put words to it and get feedback from other people who care about the issue. So that said, I will begin with part 1, but I mean the review. But first, I'm going to pause while you call to mind. I'll be quiet. I encourage you to call to mind a forgiveness issue that you are currently grappling with. Either your need to forgive someone, someone's need to forgive you, and self-forgiveness. 3 important aspects. So I'm going to be quiet for a little while you go within and name an issue so that it'll be in your consciousness while we talk. Okay, well, I'll begin the review with a brief definition of what forgiveness is and what it is not. So put very simply, and we'll do more later, forgiveness is the willingness to drop what one writer calls the you owe me card. You owe me because you hurt me. The you owe me card is comprised of what I call the 4 R's usually, not all of them. One of these R's will create this card: resentment at being hurt, the desire for retribution, the desire to retaliate, a desire for revenge. And as one writer put, there's an ancient Chinese proverb I encountered, which said, if you want revenge, be sure to dig 2 graves, meaning that it's going to hurt you as well as the one you want to hurt. So at any rate, these 4 R's build themselves into what I call a grudge. So for purposes of our talk today, it's easier to say grudge, holding the grudge that you need to let go of before you forgive, in order to forgive. So again, simply put, we'll do more later. Forgiveness is the willingness to drop the you owe me card and let go of the grudge. Forgiveness is not acquittal, like saying, okay, I forgive you, therefore what you did didn't matter. The behavior is still hurtful behavior, even when you forgive. Some people don't realize that, and that is an obstacle for them to forgive. It is not a condoning of what they did. It is not a gift to them. It might be if they care, but a lot of them don't care, and they don't even know they need forgiveness. It's a gift to you. It's a gift to the forgiver because it frees them from bondage to the offender and bondage to the past. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconnecting with a person, because a lot of times the person is dangerous. It doesn't mean you have to do it in person. It's often the most therapeutic, but you can do it without that. And it doesn't mean you have to forget what happened. We talked about that a lot last time. Forgive and forget is a dangerous slogan, because you'll never forget if you were raped, but you can still forgive. So those are some of the misconceptions about forgiveness that keep people stuck. Now there's any comments or questions so far? Jean?
Just a comment. I have the attitude picked up from praying. When we ask God, forgive me as I forgive others. So what does that say? What does that say?
What is,
You get up in front of God, you want him to say, get the H out of here. Come on in.
God forgives us all,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And we are called to forgive.
Yes.
Absolutely, Jean. In fact, I was saving this till later, but I have one scripture I wanted to share from the Old Testament, which I think is very revealing of what forgiveness means. It's from Micah chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. Why are you exhausted by bitter memories? Bitterness comes with unforgiveness, and it's tiring. Why are you exhausted? Where are your hearts that you've forgotten the counsel of your God, who calls you to forgive others in the measure you have been forgiven? Now, here's a key line. They are all key, really. Bring to birth the child of forgiveness. Now, what does that tell you? It's like, wait, it's hard work, right? Isn't that powerful? So, Micah chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. Paula. Okay, so another obstacle to forgiveness, Debbie, I think you mentioned this last time. Sometimes we don't want to acknowledge that we're hurt. Some people feel, I'd rather not, it'll make me look weak. So if you don't acknowledge that you've been hurt, and yet you're still maybe bitter and resentful, but you're putting up an obstacle to forgive. Okay, so we're going to move to prices paid if you do not forgive. Any comments, questions before we shift gears? Oh, yes, sure.
You don't even know that there's forgiveness because you don't know what you did. Because I had a friend and her husband, I thought I was helping her by telling her something. So that gave me time to pick up something and lie. And however, whatever he said to her, it's like the friendship just died and nothing I could say or do to bring it back. I finally had closure when she listened what I had to say, but she made her comment. So sometimes
That is a very challenging one,
that,
Anita.
that was
Yes.
one of those things.
You have to let go. Exactly. And the good news is you talked about it. And that's a real important part of forgiving. Thank you for commenting. Okay, I wanted to say in my review, if I leave it, I can't do the entire talk. So if I leave anything out that you think was important, please add it, okay? Okay, so moving on to prices paid if you don't forgive. Every faith tradition has a mandate to forgive. Because they are all aware of the power of forgiveness. I wanted to say a little more about that in the beginning, and I didn't. When I said forgiveness is a really big deal because it's so powerful, it can change your life. And I think if people realize that forgiveness can be transformative, they're more willing to go through the hard work of giving birth to the child. So now prices paid for not forgiving. We looked at the soul, the damage to the danger to the soul when you don't forgive. As what Leanne Payne, a writer, put it, unforgiveness deposits unholy debris in your soul, and you cannot be an instrument of peace. Prices paid. Holding a grudge, and this isn't my phrase, but I think it says a lot. Holding a grudge bathes your entire being in stress hormones. Get that? Your whole being. And that's what it does. It's holistically damaging to hold on to bitterness, resentment, grudges. And of course, your thoughts when you're not forgiving will go to the past, go to bitterness, go to resentment. And thoughts are very powerful. We're going to talk more about that later. And so if you're unforgiving, chances are you're losing the present moment. Because if you're unforgiving, you're often remembering what happened. And you may be futurizing about what you hope will happen when you have some retribution. So pasteurizing and futurizing. And what happens? The present moment is lost. And all actual living takes place in the present moment. So as Rumi, an ancient poet, wrote, everyone will die, but not everyone will live. Isn't that deep? It's kind of subtle. If you're not going to be in the now, you're not really living. You're not fully alive. Natalie, did you want to?
No.
Oh, I thought. Okay. Any comments? Okay, let's continue. Well, you're getting the picture. Yes, Anita.
One more experience that I'm gonna step on. It's food for thought. If you say that moment and don't forgive, you may end up with an experience that my whole system is with my mom Alzheimer's, and it was too late to try and talk about it. Couldn't remember anything. So my mother never got resolution. She died 2 years ago. And I listened to her suffer because my sister wouldn't resolve. And she tried, my mother tried, but my sister didn't try. And so my sister tried to help her at the end with but she didn't really get resolution.
Because of the Alzheimer's, right? However, your sister, just to be clear, Anita, despite your mother's Alzheimer's, your sister could forgive her without her really knowing. You don't have to, as long as you do the forgiving, it's an inner
But I
work.
feel that my mother got worse because of her inaction. They say that
Oh, that's very possible.
she could have gone down in more
Yeah.
depression and
Yes,
was fast.
it's very possible, Anita, because if you have these toxins in your body from bitterness and resentment, they impact your physical health too, and your mind. As a doctor at Stanford said, forgiveness is required for good bodily health. It's system-wide, so I'm sure what you described was impacted by that. No. Oh, okay. Well, you're welcome to stay. You seem to have a lot on your mind about forgiveness, but it's your call. No pressure. Oh, sure. Okay. Well, I'm glad you stopped by. Okay. Maybe we'll see you at the next talk.
Eileen.
Oh, are you there?
Hi,
Patty?
Patty.
Oh.
I'm Patty, yeah. I was just wondering, could you just summarize what Anita was saying, what that issue was, because I couldn't hear her.
Well, Patty, you weren't online when I thanked you, were you? I thanked you for suggesting part 2.
Oh, okay.
And suggesting 2 p.m. too. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
We're all here because of you. I never did a part 2 like that before, but she suggested it. It's always good to express yourself, right? She wanted to know what Anita was saying about her sister and her mother. So the mother had Alzheimer's, and what and I need your help on this, ladies and gentlemen. What I was reading into it was there were issues between mother and daughter. And the mother had a desire for resolution, but it was too late for her. Did you get that mentally? Mm-hmm. And the daughter, I don't think did anything about it, right?
I think she tried talking to her mom, but
she wasn't being understood.
Yeah.
Yes. And the daughter tried to talk to the mother, but it was too late, Patty. Oh. And so Anita was saying she believes, and I validate it, that all the mother's unresolution caused her to go downhill faster, physically and mentally. Do you think that's it, ladies? Yeah.
Okay.
And I was trying to say to Anita, I'm not sure I was clear, that if the sister still had issues, she could still write it and assume somehow her mother was going to get it. But I'm not sure I was clear on that.
Well, I get that.
Yeah. Good observation, Deb. Yeah.
You were clear about her sister
could still
clear herself.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
But
it's always worth trying, but we're not.
I think it needed still.
Yeah, I'll share that with Patty. Patty, I'm assuming you don't hear when people talk in the room. Is that right?
Sometimes I can, but a lot of times if they're talking a little softly, I can't.
Okay. So Debbie noticed that Anita is still angry at her sister.
Okay.
So there's lots of things to be resolved.
Sure. Okay.
But
thank you so
much.
much.
Sure. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you speak, I would be grateful if you raised your voice so Patty can hear you. And I won't have to repeat it because sometimes it's real complicated. Okay, well, thank you all. So let me see where we were.
You quoted the Stanford physician.
Oh, yes, about the, okay. So basically I'm winding down about the prices you pay. Are you clear enough? The prices are catastrophic and they keep you unfree. They chain you to the past and bitterness and resentment. Paula, did you have
I
something?
did, and I don't remember, you mentioned this last time, but one of the prices broke. First, and then for a while, because you can't get into a conversation, something is blocked.
Do you mean blocking the connection with other people besides the one? Oh, whoever that's called
Wherever there is issue.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Paula was saying this results in broken relationships and there is healing possible. Yes. Okay. Okay, shall I proceed? Any other comments? We have one more section for part 1, and that would be, what does the forgiveness journey actually entail? Now, usually at this point, I talk about what will ease the journey, how to prepare yourself. However, in my work research for today, I encountered more information about how to prepare yourself. So I'm saving that for part 2. Okay, so we're going to take a look at, okay, you're willing to get on the forgiveness path. What does that entail? It usually begins with a desire to let go of the grudge. You're kind of getting, yeah, I gotta do something. I'm ready to let go. And then believing that it's possible is really important, because what Debbie said, it's hard to believe. If it helps if you believe in God, because with God all things are possible. But it's important that you believe this forgiveness can happen, because it's up to you. It's not up to the offender. It's not up to the one who hurt you. You can do this in a solo way with the Lord. But yes, it is hard. But humans act in accordance with their beliefs. So if you believe it, your journey will be eased. Of course, prayer we talked about. For those of you who pray, to err is human, to forgive is divine. So whatever that means for you, and again, I certainly don't speak for any religious tradition or faith, just the spirituality that we all have in our being, whatever that means for you. This is probably the heart of forgiveness that lasts, and that is the feeling part. Invite the feelings to surface, because as Debbie noticed about the anger, there's almost always anger when there's been a hurt, sorrow. If it's for self-forgiveness, there might be guilt. So let the feelings surface and express them. Now, last time I talked about the formula for taking care of your emotions: name, claim, and tame. So to review, name what you're feeling. If you're not sure, just give it your best, because it's really hard to heal what isn't named. So name it, claim it is yours by using the pronoun I. I feel sad. I feel angry. Not you made me angry. No, the anger is yours. Perhaps their event activity precipitated, but still your anger. And then tame it. How do you tame it? Let me hear from you. How do you tame it? Who remembers how to tame the feeling? Jean?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're on the path, but there's word I'm looking for called express it.
To yourself.
Yeah, yes, but it's got to get out of your body. So expressing it to yourself may not be enough, Jean. It's good. You could write it out, but if you don't put words to it, it's trapped. Every emotion has energy. And if you don't express it, that energy gets trapped in your body and hurts your immune system.
Eileen,
Oh, yes, Patty?
years ago, when I could play tennis and I was very active, I used to rent the ball machine at the racket club, and it would feed me tennis balls, and I would slam those tennis balls, and it felt so good if I had a really bad day at work or somebody was not being fair to me. And I literally put their face on the ball and
Wow.
I gave it a good whack. And that really felt empowering. I don't know if that was healthy or not.
Oh, I think that's a great way to get that energy out of your body. Express the
Yeah.
anger. Yes.
Okay.
Did
And
everybody
it was
hear Patty?
good
Oh,
exercise.
some of the people heard you and some didn't. Patty said she used to rent machines that feed you tennis balls, and she would whack them and get her anger out. And the important thing would be to know what you were angry about, right, Patty?
Right.
To
Yes.
know that.
Oh, I do.
Okay,
I definitely
good.
do.
You want to get that energy out of the body. Now that reminds me of something from my past. In the old days, when people ironed, the only time I ironed was when I was angry. Yes, yes. So there are ways, but the key is get it out of your body because it'll hurt you. It'll lower your immune system if that energy stays in your body, right? Okay, let's see. So it's often important in the forgiveness path to tell your story. You could do it without telling your story, but if it's a really big situation, it's much more therapeutic to put words to every aspect of your story and to be listened to by someone you trust, someone who knows how to listen, who won't interrupt you, to say, don't cry. You want someone that can be in the presence of tears. So again, it depends on how serious the project is, how much of this you need to do. But there's no forgiveness without expressing feelings. It won't stick. Forgiveness is not a decision. Oh, I'm a good Christian, I'll forgive. It won't stick unless you deal with the emotional turmoil of it and get it out of your body. Okay, so then let's say we're on this forgiveness path now. We've done this work of emoting and being listened to. So then it may be that you are ready to say out loud, I forgive you. And it doesn't have to be with the person. But if you're not, you might say, I wish I could forgive you, but I'm not there yet. Sometimes it's a process and we have to be patient. But if we're working on it, that means a lot, our intention.
Eileen,
Yes.
is like you just said now, if we're working on it, because maybe we don't feel we're ready to forgive, is there a prescription that you'll give us for working on it? Like the steps that we need to do?
Well, Patty, I really just described those steps without calling them steps.
Yeah.
I took you through a process.
Okay.
There's no formula. It's different for everybody, but
Okay.
it must include the emotional component.
Okay.
Did you all hear what Patty said? She wanted to know if there was a formula. Do any of you have any comments on that? Okay, So everybody's journey is different. Our goal is the same, however, to drop the you owe me card, drop the grudge, get free. Forgiveness brings freedom. Oh, in fact, I had a good quote here. Did anybody ever hear of Corrie ten Boom?
No.
Well, I forget what's her context? She was Dutch. Was she with the Holocaust or something?
She was Dutch, but she got taken into the concentration camp. After she was freed, she saw the man who was her tormentor, and he came up to ask forgiveness, and she was so stunned, but she knew she had to do it from her faith.
Wow.
And she was able to forgive him.
Wow,
Very
Natalie, I am so glad you knew that. Did you hear that, Pat?
I did. That's really amazing.
That's wonderful. I'd like to read about that. But there's the quote from
The
Corey.
hiding place.
Oh, thank you. It's in a book called The Hiding Place. You're aware of it too, Paula? Here's the quote I found without knowing all that, but I love the quote. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hate. It is a power that breaks the chain of bitterness. Now I'm going to repeat that because every phrase is important to our journey here today. Forgiveness is the key which unlocks the door of resentment. See, we got to realize resentment is dangerous. Resentment, resending negative energy through your body. It's the key that unlocks the handcuffs of hate. So that's how much unfreedom we have if we don't do this work. It is a power that breaks the chains of bitterness. Wow, Corey. Thank you, Natalie. I'm so glad you knew the story. And what a story of forgiveness. So he comes up to her. He asks her. That is so rare. Yeah. Wow.
Eileen,
Yes, Paula.
power breaks the chain. Is the last word.
Okay. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hate, period. It is a power that breaks the chains of bitterness. Because bitterness is dangerous too. Bitterness, yeah. Okay, so that is actually the summary of part one. So does anybody want to add something I may not have shared this time? We were together 3 weeks ago, and Patty, thanks to you, we're together again. And it was nice we could do it so fast, really. Yeah, yeah. And Debbie brought her buddy, Gigi.
Yeah.
But Donna is missing. No, it's just Patty right now. Yeah. Okay, so now we're ready to do part two. Let's see how we're doing with time. Just a little bit beyond it, but that's okay. Right, so now we're going to look at how to prepare for this journey that we just took by softening your heart and strengthening your resolve to do it. So practicing these behaviors that I'm going to mention will strengthen your sense of self, whether it's about a forgiveness issue or not. As Aristotle said, and I often quote him, we become what we habitually do. So if you habitually do even some of what I'm going to share, you're strengthening your sense of self, both for the forgiveness work and we know issues come up. Life is difficult, Scott Peck said. So we want to have that core of inner strength. Okay, so, I just want to emphasize that you're getting this, but forgiveness requires this real inner work. It's really inner work to get you unstuck. If you've been holding on to resentment for a while, we're stuck. We're stuck in the past. So the work that we've already talked about is that inner work. Deb?
It's sometimes you're comfortable with that darkness or that change is scary.
Yes,
So rather than
Yes.
put the work towards change, I will hold on to it like a life support system because that's what
you're familiar with
Yes.
it. Yes. Debbie just talked about something we have talked about in other talks, which is sometimes you're so used to the feeling of resentment. It's just so familiar. It takes more energy to say, it's not what I want. I need something unfamiliar.
Well, sometimes you're afraid to forget
Right.
because
It's the known. Yes. And there is a saying that people will go for a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. Does that convey what you're saying? And it's really true. Gina, I'll get you in a minute. But I just thought of something from an article I read. There was a little girl who was severely abused, severely. And her mother was in the room. And the policeman was taking her out of danger. And what did she do? She looked back, mommy, mommy. Mommy was the source of hurt, but that was familiar. Jean?
Say it, part of forgiveness, you decided you can forgive this person. It's not forgiveness. You gotta mean it. Not just say,
Oh,
it's a
of
nice
course.
thing to say. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
You gotta
right.
mean it.
Yeah. Jean said, did you hear that, Patty? You have got, Jean said, when you're forgiving, you've got to look at the person and say, I forgive you, and mean it. Yeah. If you don't mean it, nothing happens. It's
You let
all,
the other person off the hook as far as that.
exactly.
You
You're being a nice guy.
Yeah.
But then you're holding on to the resentment and the grudges. So you're still unfree.
Yeah.
As Corey talked about, you haven't unlocked the handcuffs. Mhm. Thank you for your comment. Thanks for all the comments. Anyone else before we continue with these things? Okay, so now we're talking about what will soften your heart to get on the forgiveness journey. And a good way to begin is to stay very aware of the toxicity of not forgiving. If you keep in your awareness the prices you're paying, that's going to encourage you. Like, wow, I'm paying all these prices, and for why? To hold on to the familiar. Excuse me, but I just realized that your arm is in a sling. Oh, are you okay?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we want to stay very aware of unforgiveness toxicity. It's toxic.
Eileen,
Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
you never have to apologize for interrupting me. So go forward.
Okay, thank you. Well, along what you just said about the toxicity of unforgiveness, I recall you saying at an earlier time that our bodies are vessels. And I don't think I can say it exactly like you say it, but that our bodies can hold all that negativity, which can ultimately result in physical issues, right? Can you?
Oh,
I know you
absolutely.
can say it better.
Oh, that said it very well. Did you all hear that? So Patty says the toxicities, our bodies warehouse it. We can warehouse it. I mean, I've worked with people who had 40 years of toxicity, and it didn't go away until they talked. So yes, you're absolutely right, Patty, and it's one of the dangers. The doctor at Stanford that I quoted last time said, forgiveness is absolutely essential for good bodily health. Paula?
When you're talking about toxicity, being aware of the toxicity in your own body, what about when you are, this is a role play here, but you're in the presence of another person who has unforgiveness and is very toxic, that almost projects. Does that make sense? In other words.
I think I can
you're
imagine that.
Own toxicity.
Yes.
But you're aware when there's unforgiveness in another
Yeah,
person.
it's some-
with whom you dialogue.
Yeah, that can happen, but a lot of times people hide it so that you wouldn't know. I'm not sure what your question is, Paul, or if you're just
So
making
if
a
you
comment.
have that unforgiveness brings in your own person, but if you're in relationship with another person and there is unforgiveness between the two, is there toxicity from the other person? Can you sense the toxicity?
It depends, I'd say probably. But if you sense toxicity in someone else, I would suggest not hanging out with them because we are porous. I mean, unless you want to talk to them about it.
Or are you talking about the person that you're trying to forgive? They don't realize that they're toxic, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, being aware of toxicity in your own body, I think, kind of speaks for itself.
Right.
Yes,
But when you're in a relationship where it's toxic, it's almost a toxic environment.
but
But they don't realize it now, and they're toxic themselves. They are toxic, that would be hard.
yeah, most people,
Yeah.
if you're not dealing with it, you're probably unaware that you're toxic.
Yeah,
But it could be picked up by someone else who's aware.
Yeah.
So it's good to stay aware. Awareness keeps you safe.
Yes.
Stay awake. Don't sleepwalk through life. A lot of people do. So if you stay awake and aware, you can protect yourself. And the other way we can protect ourselves is with words. Words are very important to protect yourself. Like, it's not okay to speak to me like that. Or that's a mild example, but. Oh, is it Deb? Deb said that was a good example. Right, it's important. I, yes, yes, very important to take care of ourselves with our words. Mhm. Yes,
so that is good.
protection. We have a voice.
Could you have a voice then to speak?
Right.
You want to be treated.
Exactly. And the thing is, when I would say to clients, something happened, and I'd say, what did you say? And many times they would say, I didn't say anything because it wouldn't change him. And then I say, we don't do that to change other people. We do it to be true to ourselves. If it happens to impact them, that's icing on the cake. The other thing is, though, if we're connected to somebody in our lives, we can't change them, but we can teach them how to treat us by deliberately saying, that is not okay. I will not take that, or, they may not change other things, but they can learn to treat you differently. It's not that everyone will, but it's always worth using your voice. Strengthen the muscle of your voice. I did not have a voice till I was over 30. So I know what it's like. And it ain't good.
Well, we teach people how to treat us too.
Yes. Well, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments? Let's see where I was now. Okay. So on this, to soften our hearts for the forgiveness, we want to remind ourselves that we're really all members of the same human family, that we are all children of God, and that we are all capable of good and ill, kindness and unkindness. And again, that's not to say, well, what they did was okay. It's just to stay aware, and it might help us to get to compassion eventually. But we're not after compassion right away. We're after forgiveness. Let's see. So I already said this, but it bears repeating. Name your forgiveness issues very vividly and concretely, because you cannot change what you haven't named. Don't leave it vague. And then here's one of my favorites about your 60,000 thoughts a day. They're all powerful. If you're on a forgiveness journey, well, I want you to manage them all the time. But on the forgiveness journey, what you want to be careful of is that the thoughts aren't keeping you stuck, that you're shifting to thoughts that would be more, I'm going to forgive. I want to forgive. I intend to forgive. I need help, Lord. I want to forgive, and not replaying the resentment. Well, that blankety blank did this and that, right? So that deepens your stuckness. So the thoughts, we want to move the thoughts from negative self-talk, which is the #1 killer of personal growth, by the way. So this is a good motivation. It's hard. It's hard to be aware, but you can do it. You can be aware, that thought is pulling me down. So our goal is to be aware of the thought, and if it's not good, shift the focus to encouraging self-talk. It doesn't even have to be positive per se, but encouragement is positive. But like, I will do this. I will be able to. It's important for me to do it. So be aware. If you're being plagued by a negative thought, make a decision to shift the focus to gratitude. For example, gratitude is one of the easiest things to shift to because we have so much to be grateful for. It never runs out. Everything is a gift. Everything. I didn't realize that until the pandemic, that everything was a gift. My moment of awakening, I'll just share. I went to my library, and when I walked up the steps, and there was a sign, closed. And I had this, like, how can that be? I didn't realize it. And then in that moment, I realized I took my library for granted. And it's a rich treasure, you see? So let's be very aware of what we're grateful for. And that pushes out the other thoughts that undermine us. And I'm going to ask you this later, but one of the talks I'd like to do here would be something like retrain your brain, how to move from NST to EST. Or do you think would that be useful? Oh, good. I'll book it with Mark for next time because it impinges on all aspects of your life. It impinges on your quality of life. If you can, and you know what? Our thoughts are the only thing in life that we can be totally in charge of. Think of it. We can't be in charge of our plans. Things happen, right? But up here, it's all up to you. And the power of thoughts are underestimated. So I'm glad you're interested. I hope we can do that. Paula.
When you're saying that, what picture comes to mind is we're all in some kind of struggle or battle.
Right.
And that's the battleground.
Oh, interesting. Very good, Paul. Patty, Paula said we're all in some struggle because life is difficult. And the mind is where the battle takes place. And how will we use the resources there? Mm-hmm. Rhonda. Really? And about the thoughts and managing. Oh. Oh. Well, bring the name next time. If you, oh, okay. Joyce Myers. Patty, did you hear that?
No.
Rhonda is sharing that Joyce Myers, who's quite popular with spiritual writing that's practical, has a book about battling in the mind, right?
Okay. And,
Yes.
and I was also going to suggest that several years ago, I read a book by Norman Vincent Peale called The Power of Positive Thinking. And I found it to be excellent.
Oh, yes, that's a classic, The Power of Positive Thinking. He was ahead of his time. He was way ahead of us. Yes. Yeah, and it's classical. It's still there. It's still.
you don't put it
into
play.
action. Yes, yes. But knowing is the first step. Right. Okay, let's see. Anything else before I continue with how to soften your heart? Remember, we're on this theme of soften your heart for the forgiveness project. Okay, I talked about gratitude, right? Gratitude changes lives. Just be aware of that. Gratitude is really therapeutic, because if you go to, before you get up in the morning, try this. Give thanks for 3 things and do it at night. And then when you do that a few times, you start looking during the day for things to be grateful for. So it really is a tune-up to your mood, and it makes you more aware of good in the world. So it's very strengthening. Does anybody have a gratitude practice? Share.
I walk my dog very early in the morning because he loves people but doesn't like other dogs. And normally I'm going out when the sky is, the colors are just so gorgeous. And I'm thinking as I'm walking, I could be in the house and not seeing this.
Yes.
And God created this for all of us. It's for all of us to enjoy. So, a chore of walking the dog becomes a pleasure because I get to see the different things. Where I live, it's pretty hilly. Oh, well, it's Western Pennsylvania.
Right.
But you get to see, like, sometimes it's foggy and the valley is kind of hidden from you. And then in this winter, when the leaves are gone from the trees, I can see down to 22 and the light. And,
Wow.
it's interesting that
You have a whole changing
you can just,
landscape.
You can get enjoyment out of something that could be a chore. I guess that's what I'm trying
Well,
to say.
Well, Sharon, that is a very powerful example. Did you hear that, Patty?
I didn't.
Okay, Sharon described very vividly how when she walks her dog in the morning, she goes early, she sees incredible light, colors in the sky, incredible beauty. And she was saying, I could be inside and not even realize that this glory is out there for me to absorb. So that is a great example of how doing a chore can become a fruitful time. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, that's really, so we all have potential for that in our lives. I mean, my example would be, I have a butterfly bush. And so many summer days, if I'm sitting on my porch, the butterflies, wow, they're all works of art. So getting close to natural beauty is a wonderful way to soften your heart and strengthen your sense of self. And actually, one of the things on my list here was celebrate small moments. Just, yeah. And I mean, as Sharon describes it, it doesn't even seem small, but it's her everydayness that can become special.
It is, but it's
Well, the impact is.
right.
The deed seems small. I'm walking the dog. But the impact, because you're so aware, give yourself some credit now. She says reluctantly, yes, you deserve credit. Thank you. I'm about to get a dog. So when I walk my dog, I'll try to emulate you, Sharon. Okay, let's see where I am now. Okay. So remind yourself that unforgiveness has no benefits. Just again, we're looking for things that help you let go of the familiar even. Look at it and realize it not only has no benefits, it's toxic, even though the hold is there because it's familiar. I find this very interesting that the word attachment, sometimes we're attached to what isn't healthy. And sometimes people are attached to their grudges because they're familiar. But the Greek background of that word means nailed to. Imagine that, nailed to. Isn't that something? And that's what it can be like. If you're overly attached, you're nailed to it. And to let it go takes work. So we're putting this in the context of work, but with wonderful results, priceless freedom. Paula?
letting go or being unattached to these grudges. You've had them for so long. You're forced into a different way of life. And that can be very challenging.
And also exciting.
Yes.
You're forced into newness. You're forced outside your comfort zone. And that's what we need to get unstuck. We need something new.
You have to believe you're worthy of.
Oh, that's absolutely. Wha- Wow. You anticipated my next topic. That's good. Debbie was saying you have to feel worthy of letting go and deserving. Okay, well, I wanted to say more about self-forgiveness. But that winds down the part about these practices will soften your heart. So are there any comments or questions before I move into self-forgiveness? Okay. So self-forgiveness, as Debbie mentioned, many people do not feel worthy. And that is a tragedy because we are all worthy. We were born worthy. We were born good. We were intrinsically good. God doesn't make junk, as somebody said. So we're born good. If we don't feel worthy, it goes to something we learned. That's a whole nother topic. Learning in childhood that something happened and we feel it was our fault. So for now, what we need to say is if you carry that belief that you aren't worthy, then it's crucial to let go of that because it's inaccurate. So how will you do that? I'm going to keep in mind, I said this last time, if you say I'm not worthy, you're setting yourself above God because God says you're worthy. So C.S. Lewis said it. You're setting yourself as a higher tribunal than God. That gets your attention. Yes. Yes. So I have some steps here for the self-forgiveness that since I know from when I had my counseling office and worked with stories for almost 30 years, a great privilege that I'm still grateful for. Many people found self-forgiveness way harder than forgiveness. Yeah. And that is a sad thing. And we can begin, at least in this room, and perhaps to witness to the fact to others in our family that we are worthy. Now, many people with this issue are perfectionists, and that, of course, is not healthy. It's impossible to be perfect, but we know people grow up with that perfectionistic tendency, and that can come from childhood too. I'm not okay unless I'm perfect. But you can't be perfect. And, I once said to my parish priest when I had a parish, and I like this guy, I said, Father Frank, the Bible, I get upset with the Bible when it uses the word perfect. It's in there. And then people think, that doesn't apply to me. I can't be perfect. So he's told me that in Aramaic, that word really means complete, which is a lot less intimidating than perfect. Why, how it happens. It's there. It's not going to change. But if we know we're not called to be perfect, we're called to be the best we can be. So here are some steps for those who like clearer steps than I gave you for the forgiveness journey. Here are 7 steps to forgive yourself. Why are you shaking your head, Deb? Too much work?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's worth it. Remember, it'll free you. Look, if you don't do self-forgiveness, you do not have a positive relationship with yourself. And that's not a good thing. So this will help you to bond with yourself in a healthy way. So the first one is describe the thing in your life that you feel most in need to forgive yourself for. What do you need to forgive yourself for? That's the first step. Name it. Name it. Try to understand what led to your deed that you regret. Try to think about it, understand. Then explore your feelings about it. Now, again, you don't have to do this like this, but it usually involves, if you want to do a thorough job of self-forgiveness, it usually involves these behaviors. Okay. Yes, Paula.
Number
No,
one,
don't say you're sorry.
that's the question. What do you need to forgive yourself for?
You're right.
Okay, well, all right, have you gone to number 2?
I did.
Okay,
I said, try to understand what led to that.
okay.
I'm going to flesh this out with an example from my life, Paula, but I'll do the steps first, okay?
Okay.
Well, that's really number one. Describe the thing. I just used a different verb. Rhonda, that's a good catch, though. I should be consistent. Name the thing. Thank you, Rhonda. Describe is too vague. Name the thing you need to forgive yourself for. Then understand what led to it. Explore your feelings about it. There are the feelings again. Focus on your humanity. Yeah, I'm imperfect. I'm human. It's okay. It's okay. Here's the biggie. Ask yourself what you learned from your mistake. As one writer puts it, the only real mistake is the one for which we learn nothing. If you learn from your mistake, you're redeeming it. And then intend to forgive. Intend. And finally, pray for help. But again, that could be first and last. Did I is that 7? I'm not sure. I thought it was. Okay. Well, those are the ones that are key for us. And I'll flesh it out with something that I didn't know I needed to forgive myself for. Okay. So one day my kids said to me, they were adults, young adults, and they said, I'll never forget this. They were at my daughter's kitchen counter, and they said, you know, Mom, you weren't as good a mother as you think you were.
Wow.
Yeah, but they were right. I'm going to tell you what. Yeah, okay, thank you for your empathy, because I was stunned. It's a good thing I was leaning on the bar.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Were you in discussion about this, or did they just?
No, I know how it happened, Deb.
Okay.
My son had begun to go to a therapist, and the therapist must have, we do excavation. He excavated. And so I'm guessing Vinny talked to Elena about it, and they compared notes and said, yeah, our mother was lacking, and I was. So here's the part. Try to understand what led to it. See, this helped me to forgive myself. What led to it, now there was no abuse, thank God. It was what I would call benign neglect. I didn't pay enough loving attention to them. Why? This isn't an excuse, it's an explanation. The marriage was tense. I was always preoccupied, and in those days, not strong enough to tell him, use my voice. Yeah. So okay, so what did I learn? I learned that I could still give them loving attention that I didn't give them when they were little. So that changed my life. It was hard. Yeah. And I thought, well, I mean, wow, I want to compensate, So I am so grateful they said it. Imagine they would have been holding resentment, but they had the courage to say, look, you goofed, And I realized it's big. It's big. It was big, but I'm grateful for it. No pain, no gain, right? Sometimes we need pain to wake up. I like your nonverbal stuff.
I give them for the courage to say it,
Yeah,
but you had to have mixed emotions as far as anger. Cause you, I mean, I would have thought, well, I thought I was doing the best I could.
I didn't have anger, Deb.
Really,
Maybe because I saw it.
maybe hurt.
Yeah, hurt
You had to have a
and
plus for
sadness at myself
sad.
and for them.
Yeah.
But if I didn't believe them, I would have been angry. But they were right. And some,
Being correct.
yeah,
And it feels probably a healthier.
definitely. When and I apologized and I thanked them for telling me, sharing words, the talking cure. We gotta talk to each other and listen to each other, right?
Eileen,
Yes, Patty.
so I'm thinking now of the flip side of what you just shared, and I really appreciate you sharing that personal story. So do you think when your children as young adults, were they at the point where they had resentment about it? Do you think they were at that point when they shared it with you? Because the reason I ask that is I'm wondering then they needed to go through the forgiveness process that you're sharing with us, right?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Patty, the difference would be that because they named it and expressed their feelings to me, like, yeah, that wasn't good for us, and that I accepted it, I don't know if they did all that I described to you, but
Okay.
the result was there. So it's why there's no real formula except talking and feeling. And it can happen. And it did happen. But you asked a question that I didn't ask them, and I might still ask them. So, but then I'd have to remind them of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll do it. But what I was thinking was, were they carrying resentment when they asked me? I didn't ask that, but I bet they were. And then he was unloading it with his good therapist. So anyway, these things are multi-layered, aren't they? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I don't want to keep talking about myself. So, but thank you for listening and for the empathy. I felt the empathy. Yes. Yes. Oh, good. Good. That's how we learn from each other and our experiences. So to move away, to wind down about the self-forgiveness, do any of you know Leonard Cohen's music? Leonard Cohen. Yeah, he was kind of a poet. Anyway, he wrote something called Anthem that was real popular. And these 3 lines are relevant to self-forgiveness. So he said, forget your perfect offering. Everything is broken. That's how the light gets through. Isn't that powerful? Mm-hmm. So then for this newness, I was going to mention forgiving your parents, which sometimes we don't realize we need to until we're much older. So if anyone has that issue, we could talk about it now, because I'm really finished with my remarks, and I said it would be your turn. It's 3:15. We have 15 more minutes. I want to share with you at the end a Buddhist reading. Will someone remind me? Because I don't. Deb, will you remind me? Well, it's more like pleasure, Rhonda, so I'd rather wait. But thanks for suggesting it. I appreciate you expressing yourself. Okay, Paula, you talked about forgiving parents last time. Do you want to add anything? You shared a book with us.
Forgetting your parents, forgetting yourself.
Yeah. And
It took 25 years
for you to do it.
for me to recognize there was something, the wound was so deep. I didn't know how deep it was when I could not pray for my mother.
Oh.
It was like there was something there.
A
that I
block.
couldn't
Could you try to talk louder so Patty can hear?
And so it took, unfortunately, was after she passed that the journey began. Very difficult. But what you said in Leanne Payne's book, A Danger to the Soul, and something today just came to the surface about soul care and healing for the soul, that it's part of us that we don't see. And it's essential. It's so essential for loving ourselves.
Yes,
If we can't forgive ourselves, we've lost the joy that's been given to us. It
Yes.
would block everything
yes.
that we don't know how to.
Well, that's why we've been meeting there about forgiveness, because many people don't know how, Paula. And it is sad that it is not.
Especially when, when you were talking about some people feel unworthy. And I don't know how anybody grew up here, but there's, well, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh,
or you
yeah.
were this, or
Yes.
that. So sense
Yes.
of self was already
Diminished. Well, that
until
happens
you
in
know.
a lot of, that happens in a lot of,
Until you know how much they love.
right. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else want to mention anything about forgiveness? Not just anybody have a situation they want to share with us and get our input on? This is that third half hour about you. Rhonda.
I seem to continue to draw in the same type of person that is just so clingy, needy, very selfish. Wherever I go, usually I bring something, I'll share something, I give something. I go early, so nobody even knows I brought that. They think the church brought it or whatever. I'm not hoping for anything. But if I ask you, like, well, what's coming up next month or this or that or blah, 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 they're like, no, I don't know. Because I'm talking to someone else and they I'm their friend and I can't talk to anybody else. I won't get any input in that church or whatever, like say I don't belong to that church, but I'm just visiting that church, or say we're out doing something. You seem to be attracting the same type of people that are so selfish, and this is like very confusing to me.
Okay. Well, I have.
Because I'm not like that, because mostly like attracts like.
Okay, here's what I do have a idea about that. Patty, did you hear Rhonda?
I did. Thank you.
Okay, good. What's coming to me is you're attracted to people that are familiar, even though it's not like and like. So it may be that people in your past, maybe even your mother or your sisters were like that. And so we're drawn to it because it's familiar, and that unconsciously you want to fix it unconsciously so that they're not like that, but you can't. So
We fix them.
yeah.
Whoever prior.
Well, they not whoever prior, they're not here, but this is unconscious. It's called the repetition compulsion. It's why another way to look at it is a woman is attracted to a man because he's like her dad, even though she doesn't like the dad, but she's drawn to him because he's familiar. But unconsciously, the word usually is that she's hoping unconsciously that she'll make a difference for this. It's deep unconscious. So for you, Rhonda, I would say the fact that you're aware of it is good. You need to consider changing your behavior and letting go of people that. Now I remember. Well, yes.
It looks fine. I'm waiting for the hard cross to do whatever. Like, I have the best yard in the neighborhood. Like, I was like dumbfounded.
Well, your inner garden, perhaps.
And that's.
Yeah, your inner garden. Right. Thank you for asking it. Jean, did you want?
Whoa.
Oh, whoa, right. Sharon. Of course, we can do this for each other.
I spent probably 40 years of my life trying to remake my mother. All my friends that I was attracted to, this company accepted. But make their lives better than my mother's was. My mother was bipolar. She was extremely unhappy, very bitter, and I was going to help somebody. I never did.
But you kept
I
trying.
kept trying, and suddenly the light bulb went off, and it was like, what are you doing? You know, because you end up absorbing their pain,
Yes.
anger, and all of that stuff. And, you know, I still do it occasionally, but for the most part, it's like I stopped. You know,
Good.
And Rhonda, you'll get to the point where you recognize it and you will stop too.
Good.
You can feel badly for them. And
Yeah, you could
want
pray
to-
for them.
Yes,
You could even give them feedback gently.
if
using-
you're capable of doing that.
Yeah.
But, you know, those are the most toxic relationships because you
Yeah.
think you can change that person.
Yeah, I
And-
did it. Why? The
and-
last time I seen her, I said, why they keep telling me about all these church functions that are going on? You knew I would be interested. And she's, well, you were talking to somebody else. And I was like, I was there for an hour and a half, sitting right
So
next to her.
that's not enough.
I talked to her for like 15 minutes. It was weird.
Well, now you have new input, Rhonda, right? Now we, Paula? Yeah.
If you've seen Dances with Wolves, the woman who stands with a fist. Okay, she stands with a fist, and God allows us to stand with a fist, but He loves us enough. If we are not willing, He will pry that fist open and
Ah,
let this stuff out because He loves us enough.
wow. That's well put, Paula. Thank
I'm the
you.
one that stood with the fist.
And you had, and see, it kind of fits with what we're talking about in a way. If you have grudges, you're holding on and you're not open to receiving blessings. But if you let it go, you're open to receiving blessings. Yeah, this unforgiveness blocks the flow of love, joy. So we do need to wind down. Wait, I'm going to do the Buddha reading. Thank you. But any last minute comments?
I have a quick comment. I have a
Oh.
quick comment.
Okay, Patty. Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure who was saying this, but I learned this expression and it was stuck in my head. It's just that we can't fix other people. And then I guess the compliment to that is the only person's behavior we can control is our own. So that really
Absolutely.
helped.
The only life you can change is your own. Absolutely. And Natalie wanted to say something.
I want to say something light and something heavy. Something
Okay.
light is, I don't know if Patty can see, but we're surrounded by Halloween creepy stuff. And
Yes.
there's one over there, a skeleton taking all kind of
Yeah.
green stuff in and out of his mouth. I thought that's the bitterness and resentment that we let into
Yes.
our lives.
Excellent.
Yeah, but I'm seeing all these creepy things.
You're
I
right.
don't want to be taken over by that. I want to be free. So
Yes.
that's my life.
Wow, that's excellent. So Patty, in this room right now, I usually love the art in here, but not this. Yeah, but you're right, especially about that one. You know, we've got to let the ugliness out and be free. Thank you.
The other thing is, over the last year, I can't say for us, but I have been dealing with forgiveness for a son-in-law because our daughter died about this time last year, our youngest. Thank you. But she had a condition, which was a medical thing, but she took the Irish curse to make herself feel better. She started drinking to ease the pain. And that's what killed her in the end. So the organ shut down. But I was so resentful of cleaning out the house
Yes.
that her husband brought so much vodka in the house. There must have been 40 bottles of vodka.
Oh, Natalie.
And it just shook me to the core. I was so
Yes.
angry. But healing takes time. And it's taken time till now that I can understand his past and understand he certainly didn't want to hurt her and he himself was so injured and I can forgive him understanding that. But this has helped too, Eileen. Thank you.
Oh, Well, Natalie and Jean, my heart goes out to you. That's the most profound loss. And for you to be able to forgive him, God bless you, Natalie. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. It's sad isn't enough.
Hearing that
Sorrow.
makes me
Yeah.
want to look outside of my own stuff. It opens
Yeah.
eyes to,
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, such a huge thing to forgive. But with God, it's possible. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Natalie. I'm sure it took courage for you to share that.
We don't want to be like that still.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Gosh. Wow. Let's all take a deep breath and I'm moved to say,
that was powerful.
what's your daughter's first name?
Aaron, he's.
Aaron. May Aaron rest in peace. And may all who loved her find comfort and solace and move closer to the Lord. The only thing we don't want to let go of is holding his hand. Yeah. Well, I'm going to read the Buddhist reading. It's very simple. Yes, Jean?
When you're done, I want to talk to you about people.
Sure. I would ask you to close your eyes and just try to quiet your mind for this little reading. It just ties together what we've been about here for an hour and a half. For all the ways that I have harmed another in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through ignorance or confusion, I ask for forgiveness. For anyone who has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through ignorance or confusion, I offer my forgiveness. For all the ways that I have harmed myself, either knowingly or unknowingly, through ignorance or confusion, I heal these wounds with forgiveness. Doesn't say so, but I will say amen.